UFC 298 is upon us, obviously today, right at the Honda Center in Anaheim, California, and it's the day of the fights. I know I'm putting this out late, so I'm not going to take a lot of your guys' time up. I'm just going to try to rattle through these main card fights real quick, give you my thoughts, and hopefully get this thing published here quickly. I got to go to jiu-jitsu or leave for jiu-jitsu in like 20 minutes. So, yeah, I'm going to try to make this short and sweet, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, prelims. I'm just going to read them off. Miranda Maverick is kicking things off against Andrea Lee. Prelims are going to start at 4:30 Mountain Time. I always read it Mountain Time. 6:30 Eastern Time, right? Obon Elliott versus Val Woodburn. Danny Barlow versus Josh Quinlan. Brenson Ribeiro. I'm probably fucking names up along the way, guys, too, so forgive me. Brenson Ribeiro versus Zhang Mingyang. Rinya Nakamura versus Carlos Vera. Marcos Rogerio de Lima versus Junior Tafa. I don't know if you guys saw, but Justin Tafa missed weight. And Junior Tafa, his little brother, is stepping up to the plate to fight Rogerio de Lima, which is, I don't know if it's an advisable fight to take on however many hours notice, right? Tafa's 5-1. De Lima's 21-9-1. MMA junkie records are off sometimes, but Rogerio de Lima has a significant experience edge in this fight. So this is an interesting one. But Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Lemos is going to be your headlining prelim card. Then we get to the main card, and this is where I'll start breaking them down just a little bit further, right? First, Anthony Fluffy Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov. This is a great matchup because I think Hernandez can box, but what he's really going to want to do in this fight is he wants to get the takedown, man. Hernandez is doing his best work when he is wearing on guys and relying on that strong cardio base that he has. But this is an interesting matchup, and this is a card, by the way, from top to bottom, where I feel like every single underdog is live. Every single underdog is live in this, right? Kopylov is a very precise striker. He has a nasty left kick, and he takes it up high, takes it to the body. His striking and his boxing is very precise, and he can wrestle. I think Hernandez is going to have a harder time than people think getting this fight to the ground. I think that Hernandez is going to have to box a little bit, and when Hernandez gets into those boxing exchanges, he can be hit. And we talked a little bit about the precision of Kopylov. I think that's going to be an important factor in this fight. All that being said, I think that Hernandez's style, just getting in Kopylov's face, crowding him constantly, pushing the fight up against the cage, you might see Kopylov be successful in defending things one or two times. But if he's not able to get back to space, Hernandez will go to the well over and over and over again until he breaks him down and starts landing the takedowns. And now, he's taking you down and maybe you're popping back up in the first round immediately. But by the time we get to the middle of the third, it's taking you a little bit longer. And then all of a sudden you're giving these defenses, right? Or you're getting mat returned. And then you're putting up this defense and he's dealing with it and staying on top. And then your defenses start wearing out. A lot of people talk about chain wrestling as this thing that happens offensively, and it is. It's 100% true. All the great wrestlers in MMA, almost all of them chain wrestle, right? But it's very important to be able to chain defensively as well. If you have one defensive option, and you see this a lot even at a high level in the UFC, if you only have one defensive option to get out, you see guys go through a burst, and then they give up when it doesn't work. You have to be able to chain these things together and also have just an understanding of inside positioning and how to get back to that, right? So if Kopylov can demonstrate that, right, and start getting his frames, getting elbows back inside, turning and facing Hernandez, and then separating and getting to space, you'll see, I think this fight swings in the favor of Kopylov. But if he's not able to do that, even if Hernandez is just able to pin him up against the cage and Kopylov can't deal with it, I think you're going to see this swing Hernandez's way eventually, right? It's going to be very important for Kopylov to get frames, make space, and control the center of the octagon. If you don't see him develop, and I think this is a big question, right? I think this is a big question for both of them because I don't think we've seen Hernandez. I mean, obviously he fought Rodolfo Vieira, but jiu-jitsu guys oftentimes are not exactly known for being specialists in takedown or takedown defense, right? But Kopylov is a competent wrestler. And I think that Hernandez is going to be tested in that department. But Kopylov hasn't faced a wrestler, I don't quite think, a relentless wrestler a relentless MMA wrestler, I should say, like Fluffy Hernandez. So this is a great matchup. I think Hernandez is going to get it. I do think that his wrestling will be technical enough and just that constant pressure will be enough. But don't be surprised if you see Kopylov start making those frames and getting the fight back to the center of the octagon. I think the key for him is not to get caught up in grappling exchanges. Sometimes you see guys get out of a situation, go for a takedown, and then the other guy who's actually a better grappler ends up on top. I think Kopylov has to disengage and not get caught up in those grappling exchanges, and he'll be fine. But that's the big question in this fight, because I think Kopylov has an advantage on the feet. I said I was going to make these quick. I'm fucking rambling. All right, Henry Cejudo versus Merab. Again, Henry Cejudo is a big underdog in this fight, but I feel like he's a live dog. I feel like Merab is very, very good, and he brings relentless pressure. But a lot of his game does rely on the ability to take guys down. And if you look at his fight against Petr Yan, Merab is the same type of way, but he's not necessarily like... Fluffy is going to pin you up against the cage, hunting for takedowns over and over again. Merab is going to just constantly hunt for single legs wherever he can get them, right? He's going to be shooting from the center. He's not so reliant on pressing you up against the cage and pinning you there. He's going to use his boxing and his striking. And guys, if you watched his striking during the Petr Yan fight, I felt like he had improved significantly in that department. And his striking, when he's technical like that, it allows him to put pressure on guys, right? He stays very measured. But that being said, Cejudo has that kind of karate stance. He's got some interesting striking. He comes from these different weird angles sometimes with the shots. It's like, is Cejudo going to be able to stuff those takedown attempts over and over again? Because Merab, like I said, he'll go for it 10 times. And if it fails every single time, he'll go for it 15. Like, he'll just keep going and going and going. And the question is going to be, can Cejudo find a way to stave that off and find success on the feet, right? I don't know. I think this is a closer fight than the odds are giving it. I am leaning towards Merab just because I feel like if you look at his career, right, and I don't know, maybe it's not real, but I feel like you look at his career and it just feels like destiny for him. Like, he's on that trajectory right now. And Cejudo is coming off a loss to his teammate. And Sterling has already fought Cejudo. He's got some inside knowledge as to the things that he likes to do, what he feels and looks like in there. And not that you can completely emulate that in the camp, but you can get close. And I think that having somebody who's fought Cejudo previously helps a lot. And I think that, well, you could say the same thing from Cejudo's side, that he's fought Sterling and somebody from that camp. Merab is a completely different style than Aljamain. I think Merab is very active. He's going to throw a lot of volume. I think it's going to be very important for Cejudo to land damaging shots in this fight. Shots that stun and rock and keep Merab Dvalishvili at bay. If you see Cejudo go out here and he's just kind of pitter-pattering with the shots, or you're finding that his shots aren't hurting Merab and making him second-guess whether he should come into range, I think you're going to start seeing Merab find success. But if Cejudo can sting him and freeze him up and make him hesitate just a little bit, that's where Cejudo can start getting the snowball rolling in his direction, right? But I think Cejudo kind of has to sting Merab in this fight, and I think that Merab has to just keep that constant pressure on and never let Cejudo get going in that regard. The wrestling's going to be super interesting. I don't know what way it goes. On paper, Cejudo's a better wrestler, right? So you could see Cejudo pushing for the takedown and maybe testing the takedown defense of Merab Dvalishvili in this fight, right? Maybe a guy who's willing to really, put it on Merab and see, you're good at taking people down, but what happens when I put that on you and use my Olympic gold medal experience to kind of flip the script? Again, I feel like Merab's trajectory, his style is very hard to deal with. I feel like Merab should win this fight. But I think Cejudo's a live dog, man. I'm taking Merab, but Cejudo could absolutely pull it off. Again, I feel the same way about the next two fights. Ian Gary versus Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal is a bad motherfucker. And a big difference, I've been thinking about this. Ian Gary is very light on his feet, and you saw it's not that he can't knock you out. It's not that he doesn't have power. He does. But when you watch him fight Neil Magny, for example, it felt a little bit like he was playing with his food, but it's also like non-committal to big shots, right? Like when you're dotting a guy up like that, you've established that you're the better striker. Neil Magny's not the kind of guy who's going to offer up anything huge offensively back at you. Not that he couldn't, but he's likely not going to rock you with a giant overhand right. So you now, as you start picking him apart, should start picking up the intensity and taking more risk to finish the fight because you know that your odds of getting finished are lower, right? And we kind of saw Ian Gary just kind of float in that scenario. Granted, he toyed with Neil Magny, and Neil Magny does have a victory over Jeff Neal. But my point is that you see Ian Gary pick people apart, and man, Jeff Neal is precise, and that motherfucker sits down on his punches. I think that's going to be a big difference maker in this fight, and again, why I feel like Neal is a live dog. He also just dealt with Shavkat Rakhmonov, got choked out in the third round, granted, but he had Shavkat hurt in that third round. He was landing strikes of his own, and I think Shavkat is a much more terrifying prospect than Ian Gary, right? Ian Gary is very good. If he is able to hold the range, he's going to have a good chance at beating Jeff Neal. But I got Jeff Neal in this fight, man. I think, again, that he just sits down on his punches and his willingness to throw and get into those firefights sometimes. Like, I think he's going to be willing to eat a couple from Ian Gary, and he's going to step through some of that and land shots of his own. And I'm interested to see how Ian Gary reacts when he really starts getting hit against a very high-level guy. I mean, a guy who fucking slept Vicente Luque, let's not forget. And Luque's good, man. Luque's a very talented striker. And that was originally supposed to be the matchup, is Ian Gary versus Luque. So I got Jeff Neal in this one. I also just think that Jeff Neal is very tested, right? Like, yes, granted, he lost to Magny, but he kind of fell into Magny's style of fighting in that fight. Jeff Neal didn't really, in my opinion, fight the fight that he should have in that fight. But when he lets it go and he lets his fist starts flying, he's very precise, very accurate. He's fast. He throws combinations. He's got dangerous kicks and punches. He can sting you with both. This is a tough fight for Ian Gary, and Ian Gary can win. But I actually feel like I feel like Jeff Neal, man. I got Jeff Neal in this fight. And not just on this blatant hope or anything against Ian Gary. Like, if Ian Gary goes out, he could very well prove me wrong, dot him up. But I just think that the willingness of Jeff Neal to come forward and stand in the pocket and trade shots, it's going to catch Ian Gary by surprise a little bit. My opinion. But if Ian Gary comes out and looks, it's not like I'm rooting against the guy. I don't give a fuck about any of his, like, whatever, his white, all this stuff that's going on, all this drama that's surrounding Ian Gary. Just looking at him in terms of his skill as a fighter, he's very talented. But Jeff Neal is a real motherfucker, and he's fought some of the division's elite. So I'm leaning towards Neal in this fight. All right, Paulo Costa versus Robert Whittaker. This is a very interesting matchup because I feel like, again, Costa is a live dog. He just throws with so much power, and you have to take into consideration that Whittaker is coming off a loss where he got beat up. And it felt like, really, more than anything, he was more technical than Duplessis in that fight, but Duplessis just kind of bullied him. Like, he got him in that headlock from the feet, kind of hit like a weird hip throw, ended up on top, and when he got on top of Whittaker, beat him up, and then things started opening up for him on the feet in the next round. Whittaker looked great to start that fight off, but it was like when Duplessis just turned it into like kind of a nitty-gritty fucking kind of more of a dogfight, I feel like you saw Whittaker struggle with that a little bit. And the thing about Costa is a big guy for the division. He's willing to walk forward, and he packs serious fucking power. And I worry for Whittaker that the kicks coming at him, the power, Costa's ability to push this fight backwards and walk through some of the abuse that Whittaker is going to deal out. I don't know, man. Costa's a live dog in this fight to me. I think he's very good. He's got good jiu-jitsu, right? But really, he throws really fucking hard on the feet. And that power seems to carry into late rounds as well. Even though his volume might not all be there, that power is always there. And I just wonder how Whittaker handles that power problem. Now, Whittaker, though, on the other hand, is, I think, the more skillful fighter. I think he's probably the guy more willing to time up his level changes, or more likely to time up level changes. He's going to be stinging Costa with shots and then getting out of the way, right? I always feel like Whittaker's striking style reminds me of a lot of, like, it's very Carlos Condit, TJ Dillashaw-esque. He hides that high kick really well, right? He makes it seem like he's going to come through with an overhand, but then the kick comes behind it. He's just got a very technical striking like repertoire. And I think that is enough to overcome Paulo Costa. But again, I just feel like Costa's a live dog. I feel like this is more of a coin flip fight, especially, again, Whittaker coming off that loss. Man, I don't know. Costa's going to be, I think he's going to be going out and trying to hurt Whittaker and put that same kind of pressure on him and bully him. And Whittaker's got to, again, he's got to be picking him apart and keeping his range and not getting hit with those big power shots from Costa. I think Whittaker wins. I do think he's the better martial artist all around in terms of skill, but it's fighting, man. Power matters, and I think Costa's got a lot of power and a lot of willingness to march forward. So we'll see. We'll see. All right, main event time. Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria, and there has been a lot of fucking, well, what some would call cockiness from Ilia Topuria, grabbing the belt, wearing it, and it is kind of like, it does seem like he's maybe trying to replicate what Conor McGregor did a little bit in some sort of way, right? But really, I think he's just trying to find a way to make a name for himself, make this fight interesting, and he's going up against the greatest featherweight of all time, Alexander Volkanovski. And I think people are upset that he's discounting the champion and treating him, but like, what do you do? You're 14-0. If I'm Ilia Topuria, it's like the people might not like it, but if I can go out there and back up all the trash talk, all the stuff I've been saying, man, people's minds are going to change real fucking quick, and they'll go, damn, that Ilia kid's for real. And you know what? His rise does kind of remind me of Conor McGregor's, where he's knocking out these guys and you're like, yeah, but the next guy will get him. Yeah, but the next guy will get him. Yeah, but the next guy will get him. And Conor going up against Jose Aldo, the greatest featherweight at the time. Like, do you know what I'm saying? It does feel very reminiscent. And part of me thinks that Topuria is going to win this fight. Again, call it destiny, call it whatever you want. It's like his trajectory is leading up to this. And you're doubting it, and you're looking at him, and he's got these great knockouts, and you're like, yeah, but. And I feel like for whatever reason tonight, that yeah, but starts to go away a little bit when Topuria wins the belt. I think Volkanovski's better. I'm giving Volkanovski all the respect in the world. I'm just saying there are certain fights that, if I look at it from a technical perspective, Volkanovski should win. He's better. I think he's more skillful. But Ilia can wrestle. I think Ilia's going to have good cardio. Ilia stays very composed on the feet. He applies pressure, and his style is very like, he'll throw leg kicks and stuff, but he's very boxing heavy, and it's simplistic, and it's hard to deal with. But for Volkanovski, he's a guy who throws a lot of feints, and is Ilia going to respect those feints, or is he going to start throwing offense when he sees those things? But obviously, Volkanovski's looking to counter that, but I just worry that Ilia has a really good chance in this fight to get going early when Volkanovski's still trying to figure him out. I don't know, just a feeling that I have. My head says that Volkanovski wins, right? Like if I'm analyzing it and looking at it like from this high-level perspective on paper. But if I'm giving you guys my honest feeling about just what I think is going to happen, I feel like Ilia is going to pull off something. I don't know. That's just how I feel. Anyway, guys, I got to go get my fucking gi ready and shit. Like I said, head to class. Thank you for tuning in. Much appreciated. I will catch you guys later. Enjoy the fights tonight. Bye-bye.